Good day, I am Antonia P. Ariata, a nursing student from NUR 245. This video contains a video reflection, community hazard and vulnerability assessment, and DRRM strategy proposal. Disasters are part of life, but I came to realize that they only become worse when us humans are not ready for them. In the provided video, which is the NSTP Common Module Topic 6A, Disaster Risk Reduction and Management by Alfredo Maharlagmay, I learned that disasters don't just come from hazards like earthquakes and typhoons, but also from people's exposure and vulnerability. From that on, I think it's important to understand concepts such as hazard, risk, exposure, vulnerability, prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response and rehabilitation and recovery, because they help us see what we can actually do to reduce the impact. These are the things I'll talk about in my key takeaways. First, hazard is a natural or man-made event that could cause harm. This is what I've learned, but I also have a question. From the provided video, there's only one thing that I don't seem to understand is when Sir Alfredo Lagmay said that hazard may occur in an unpopulated area, in a very remote area. It will not disrupt the area because there are no people there, because nobody is exposed and no people there. Nobody is vulnerable people. Then he added, hazard that strikes in a populated area where there are a lot of building, property, and vulnerable people are in high disaster index. My concern is from the first sentence because I think when a hazard occur or strike in an unpopulated area, this doesn't make not disrupt the area and nobody is vulnerable people. Just because there are no property and people there, it may not affect us human from the time being it happened, but it can in the future because I believe hazard can be triggered naturally. The next is disaster. Disaster is when a hazard makes an impact, causing a disruption to human, property, economic, and environment. Next is risk. Risk is not only hazard, earthquake, flood, and landslide, but it is the interaction between what the people do, what they expose to hazard, how vulnerable they are, and what are the capacity is, and that it equates to what they call disaster risk. Disaster risk is equal to hazard times exposure times vulnerability. Since I already mentioned hazard, I will then proceed to exposure and vulnerability. Exposure is to which human, property, economic, and environment are present in hazard areas. While vulnerability, it is the characteristic and circumstances of community that make it vulnerable to the damaging effects of hazard. So, disaster risk reduction management or DRRM aims to reduce the damage caused by natural hazard like earthquakes, floods, droughts, cyclones through ethic of prevention. The DRRM has its pillar which is the prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, and rehabilitation and recovery. From what I have learned, prevention is the effort we do to completely avoid the disaster, meaning stopping the hazard from causing harm and disruption, while mitigation is the effort we do to lessen the disaster impact. And preparedness is being prepared already before the disaster. At first, I got confused as to what is the difference between the mitigation and preparedness because I think they both lessen the impact of the disaster. So I did a little research. Mitigation is yes, lessening the disaster impact, but in our environment, meaning it is the effort or action we do to lessen the disaster's physical damage, while preparedness does also lessen the impact of the disaster, but to us, human and animals. Moving on to the response, it is the response of the humans during the disaster. Then next is rehabilitation and recovery. Rehabilitation is a short-term recovery action after disaster. Meanwhile, recovery is the long-term. For example, receiving relief goods in evacuation center that is rehabilitation, while recovery is restarting again like building homes and infrastructures. That would be all for my video reflection. Next is community hazard and vulnerability assessment. I live in Tansa, Cavite, but I choose to create a video of community hazard and vulnerability assessment here in Taft Avenue, Barangay 36, where I currently stay because I think they need more attention. All the described vulnerabilities I will mention are based on my experience and observations. So number one is flooding. The vulnerabilities are physical, social, and economic. For physical, old, clogged, and insufficient drainage system can handle heavy rainfall and easily get clogged with garbage, causing water to rise fast. For social, as students, elderly, and workers commuting are stranded during floods. Then for economic, small business along Taft lose income when floods disrupt their places. Then number two, earthquake. The vulnerabilities are again physical, social, and economic. For physical, many old and closely built structures such as schools, dorms, and hospitals are not earthquake resistant. Then for the social, Taft is populated with students and patients who have limited mobility during emergencies. And then economic, business and schools may stop operations, causing financial strain. And then lastly is fire hazard. Vulnerabilities is physical, social, and economic. For physical, dormitories, restaurants, and informal settlements. And then social is high student population like us living in boarding houses are unaware of fire exits. And then economic, fire can destroy business, displace residents, and cause heavy financial loss. All the hazard that I have mentioned also have their environmental vulnerability, which is because Taft Avenue is deforested area, has polluted waterways and pollution. Then moving on to the last part, the RRM strategy proposal. For number one, again, flooding. Flooding, my prevention and mitigation is regular drainage cleaning, stricter waterways management, and installation of flood barriers. The importance is this lessens the chance of water overflowing and reduce the severity of floods, protecting lives and property. For preparedness, early warning systems and evacuation plans for schools and offices. Its importance is it ensures people know where to go and what to do, preventing panic and saving time during sudden floods. Then number two, my prevention and mitigation for earthquake is building inspections, reconstruction of old structures or materials, and follow earthquake resistance building codes. It's important is it reduces the chance of building collapsing, lowering death potential and property damage. For preparedness, regular earthquake drills and proper training on evacuation routes. It's important is it prepares the community to act quickly and safely, minimizing injuries and confusion. Then lastly is the fire hazard. My prevention and mitigation is strict fire safety inspections, installation of fire extinguishers. Its importance is it lessens the chance of fires starting and spreading, and then protecting lives and property. For preparedness, is conducting fire drills in schools, hospitals, and dorms, and training people on how to use fire extinguishers. And then it's important is it saves lives by ensuring quick evacuation and immediate response before fire spreads. That would be all. Thank you.